Started Paris painting with a paintbrush and a dream. It scaled up to be last year 14 million in painting. And then we also have a holdings company where we make investments in other painting companies. The whole reason you set the goal was to affirm the direction and give you a focused direction. Because then the same thing happens when you surpass it. A lot of times people will surpass a goal. That goal was just a way to keep you focused. Now you've surpassed it, you can set new goals, but it's not even about the goals, it's about the direction you're heading in. So just focus, what are you being along the process, not what are you achieving. We're human beings, not human achievers.
Welcome to the Painting Business Pro Show. I'm Eric Barstow, and I have an awesome episode for you today. It's a conversation with me and Jason Paris. I feel like this conversation has been a long time coming. I've known about Jason and all the great work that he's been doing with his first painting business, Paris Painting, which is a $13-14 million business now, and then Aleph Holdings and Aleph Ventures, where he's building a real estate portfolio and he's building all these partnerships and a portfolio of painting companies. And he's doing a lot of amazing stuff, but he's also just a really super interesting, super inspiring human being. And in this conversation, we try to go a little bit of a different direction than a lot of the common painting stuff. And we get into a lot more life stuff in this conversation as well. So I hope you enjoy the conversation between me and Jason as much as I did. Let's dive in. All right, Jason, super excited to talk to you. Thanks for joining me after all these years. Welcome to this podcast, Painting Business Pro Show, whatever you want to call it.
Pleasure to be here.
So, all right, man, I prepped you before that I wanted to go through like some off the beaten path stuff. You know, it's kind of amazing. We've never connected until just recently at the PCA. And so I'm really excited to talk to you about a lot of things. And a lot of people have heard from you in a lot of different formats over the years. Hopefully we can expose you to some new people, but I wanted to go in maybe a different direction that, you know, people haven't heard a lot of these angles before. So first, can you just give me your version of your like story in like a short, condensed version? I think I know it, but I'd love to hear it from your mouth.
The packaged version would be painting my way through college. Did a program called College Pro Painters. Graduated with an econ degree. Said, thank goodness, I'm never going to paint again. Worked at Fortune 500 land. Did that for a little over a year. Variety of reasons. Kind of classic conversation with the spouse. Do I do something that I'm passionate about or just grind it out for the next 40 years? Started Paris painting with a paintbrush and a dream. Just knocking on doors in Plymouth, Minnesota. It scaled up to be whatever we did last year, 14 million. In painting. And then we also have a holdings company where we make investments in other painting companies. And then we've done some real estate investments, mostly in southern outstate Minnesota. Personal hobbies, I have a beautiful wife and 5 kids. And so we homeschool our kids. And that's a big part of my day-to-day and week-to-week life is on the home front. Personal hobbies, I like flying small aircraft. So right now, just single engine airplanes. I have my private pilot's license. And then I like running really long distance races, so ultra marathons. The longest one I've done is a 200 miler. Actually, tomorrow in about 22 hours, I'm going to start a last runner standing race pretty close to my house. So I'm excited to do that. But that's probably like, in a nutshell, here's a nice little package that I can give to Eric.
Dude, how many miles is going to win that one tomorrow?
So right now, the format is you run 4.167 miles every hour on the hour. It's a specific distance, so that every 24 hours you complete 100 miles. The course record here is 29 laps or 29 hours. Probably going to take mid-30s to low 40s this year to win. But it only takes 2 people to go nuts. The record is over 100 hours, not on this course, but from a guy in Ohio. So there's some lunatics out there.
Do you have a goal or like how long you're trying to make it?
You know, I've never done this format before. I feel like I'm very well mentally prepared for the race. Physically, I would not say I'm as prepared as I would like to be. I had kind of a rough training block over the winter, dealing with some low back pain. So I kind of feel like I'm kind of limping into the event, but I'm going to be grateful for whatever I do, but I'd be disappointed if I don't make it to 24 hours. But we'll see. This is it'll be a fun thing to listen to on the back end.
Yeah, totally. All right, well, good luck with that.
Thanks.
That is amazing. I didn't know you were flying airplanes. How long have you been doing that for?
Yeah, so that started last year. I got my private pilot's license in the fall last year. So I started flying early last year. And right now I'm getting my instrument rating, which is a type rating you get that allows you to fly in the clouds without visual reference of the ground. So just kind of in the early stages, first couple of years of getting into that hobby.
Well, and you're, How long have you kind of been in this like in between? I know when we met at, when we chatted at the BC, just briefly, you mentioned you're kind of like in this in between season a little bit, where you obviously built Paris, you launched a lot of things with Aleph and the real estate. How long have you been in this kind of down period a little bit?
Yeah, there's definitely been a gradient or a pendulum that's kind of been in that sense. So I feel like starting in 2020-ish, I started to feel a little more relaxed, which is like normal workload, sort of like everything on my shoulders. And then probably 2023 got quite relaxed. 2024, I really started stepping back. And then 2025, kind of in that same mode as 2024. So I'd say like the last 2 years, it's been in this kind of new stage of what is the next startup that I can jump into and help drive, as so many things that we've gotten going are now in that what we call it, predictable success or scaling mode.
Have you been, as you were getting all those things going, did you have kind of down periods, or was it like Paris right into the next, right into the next? Like how did that?
Yeah, it was just hard grind for a long time. Paris, I felt like it was the longest one, but then in apartments, I didn't do a ton. I have a business partner named Chet, and he does almost everything with apartments now. I was with him for a little bit in the first year when I was the most useful, which is the startup phase. We bought a construction company called Haven Builders. We tried to scale that for a few years. We sold it. We made money on the transaction. Definitely was not worth the energy and effort to get into that venture. And then when we started making investments in painting companies, I was our primary driver when it comes to the front end of that venture. But I would say, again, it was more of a gradient. I would say starting in 2020, 2021, I still would work hard, but not like manic hard like I used to.
Dude, what was the transition like for you out of that? Because I know, like, I've been just like going, we have a similar background. So I was college works painting. I think you guys got some better training over there at College Pro. I didn't think so at the time. I got indoctrinated into like College Works is the best. And then years later, I'm like, wait, they taught you what? They taught you what? But anyway, so yeah, we did that. I also got a degree in economics. Same. And then, I've been in like the go mode. I was pretty like lifestyle driven in some of the early years, but what's that transition been like for you to be in like a very productive state for so long? Was it like hard to chill? Cause I'm just envisioning that for me, like with me having young kids and we're homeschooling. I'm like, I didn't get into business to like be busy forever, to be like in this drive state forever. But it's also a lot of like it's like a lot of my identity at this point too. So like, what was that like for you? And this is like the personal, want to learn from you question.
So
how have you dealt with that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of contentment for sure. Like I wake up a lot of days, I'm just very content with my days. I also would just call out, like I did get into flying airplanes and ultra marathons. There's probably some correlation of me seeking out a substitute for that grind in that learning zone that I no longer have, being a driver of a startup company. But it's kind of similar to, and I know you have young kids and it'll go by in the blink of an eye, but as your kids grow up, you have like this pride, but also this sadness. Like my oldest right now she's about to turn 11, and she's just not dependent on me the same way that my 2-year-old is. And in some ways, like that's very awesome, and I'm very excited about that. It gives me a lot more freedom in the evenings, right? And if it was just her, we don't have freedom yet because we have young kids, but it gives me a lot of freedom. Theoretically, you can do a lot more things. So, but at the same time, there's like a nostalgia, like an appropriate somber nostalgia that you have. So I think I kind of feel that same way in the businesses I've been a part of starting up, where there's a lot of pride. We just were at an awards ceremony for the Better Business Bureau. I didn't know we were an applicant for it. The team invited me to it last minute yesterday. And I went there, and our CEO went and accepted the award, and I kind of just got to stand in the background. And there's a lot of pride of like, wow, this company is doing amazing things without me, and I don't have to drive it. But there's also like a somber nostalgia that you have of like, man, I remember back in 2018 when I was sleeping in the office floor. You kind of look back on those things fondly. So I think it's very similar to how it's going to be with raising kids. You have to have this balance of contentment. How do you handle the nostalgia? Finding some sorts of substitutes and outlets in your life. That's how I'm navigating it, at least.
Yeah.
So far.
Yeah, no, that's great. You're like, yeah, in fairness, I do run 200-mile races, and
there's probably something I'm working through there. There's probably something there.
That's awesome. Dude, what about, did you ever go through, I work with, one of the things I like really stand for with people in my business and who I coach is like live a life of your own design, which includes, something I do is like Wednesdays, like Josephine and I, my wife Josephine, we take Wednesdays off together, starting at about noon, and have like the whole afternoon together. And I was coaching one of my partners now, and he was like, man, I feel guilty like taking lunch with my wife. And I was coaching him through that. I'm like, dude, you can take lunch with your wife. But, in reflection, I'm like looking at myself, like, dude, I would feel like my level is I would feel guilty, like removing myself from the business and like doing nothing for a day. Like that's where one of my challenges is. Did you go through any of that as you started to remove yourself from your
I
companies?
didn't immediately because I felt like I had earned it and I
Yeah.
had made so many sacrifices early on.
Yeah.
So I kind of like, I was aware of the sacrifices I had made. And my wife and I think the best way to approach that is we had communication around it. So in the early days, there was a lot of sacrifice, and the idea is, let's do today what others won't, so we can do it tomorrow what others can't. The idea is that we're kind of making investments in the future. We didn't know it would pay off so soon or so big. We all kind of both walked into that. So now there's this like, well, we do live in America. We did make some crazy risks. We did work super, super hard. Kind of how capitalism works is it rewards those who are willing to be founders because not many can or are willing to. So I haven't struggled with that. I also come from like a paradigm, like a personal philosophical paradigm of Christianity. So I'm very used to accepting gifts that I haven't earned. That's kind of like baked into my DNA versus like maybe like a different paradigm or a different like religion code where I more have to earn things. You might be guilty, like, have I earned this or not? So I think that's something that I kind of have a unique paradigm. I'm able to accept the giftings or accept blessings that just makes it a little easier.
So what are you really loving about this current spot you're in?
I think there's a lot of pride around just the team and watching what they're doing. It was just funny because I remember back when I used to be involved in, even if I just look at Paris painting, I never had great interactions with the BBB. They would call me and try maybe to get me to be accredited, and I would tell them that they're a scam over the phone. And now like the team is like a professional organization that submits videos and stuff, and they've won this award. So there's a lot of pride. I think it's also like there's a somber like nostalgia for the past. That's definitely a part of it. Of like, man, I kind of miss that grind. I kind of miss being a startup. Like, what can I do next? Like, I can only like run so much and fly so much and hang out with my kids so much. Like, there's something I want to do. And is that here? Is there a place I can lean back in that would kind of still I'd be beneficial, not get in the way, but also scratch the itch of what I think my unique giftings are. So that's something that I navigate even just currently with my partners. We talk through it. But yeah, it's like a swirl of emotion. It's a big swirl of emotions.
Totally, man.
But it's a mixture of contentment, also feeling like stewardship, like what should I be doing? I'd be fine not doing anything else, but is there something I should be doing in a stewardship sense? And it's just a big swirl of therapy through long distance running that's happening.
Dude, I get it, man. It's like you spend a lot of your life doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
Are you feeling a pull towards anything right now?
I mean, the answer is no. The immediate answer is no. I feel like the self-awareness is I'm in like a waiting and holding capacity season where I'm like ready and able to go into things. And I love it if there's something to jump in here, but it's kind of like the combination of like, am I going to get in the way? Am I useful? I do think I understand my unique giftings, which is I'm really good at the startup phase. And sometimes that's a little antagonistic when you're in stable, consistent growth. Yeah, there's nothing immediate. I also do feel like I'd be content if there wasn't anything I would jump into. There's no financial burdens or financial needs that I'll have or my kids will have, but more of that stewardship sense of what are unique giftings I have? Is there a way I can use them, make an impact on others? Am I foregoing those by not taking a risk or not jumping into something? Those are just things that I personally wrestle with.
What's the startup phase like for you? Like, why is that a gift of yours? And like, how do you define like the startup phase?
Yeah, so I think what excites me about it is I just think of like high energy, chaos. It shouldn't work, but you got to make it work. And that, I think I just maybe like a little bit of that chaos. I like a little bit of like, how is this, like, there's a lot of like faith that you step into of like, man, I don't know how we're going to figure this out, but I have faith in me. I have faith in us as a team. Like, we will figure this out. You're looking at, it's whatever, you'll say it's May 1st. You're looking at the production schedule. Like, I don't know how we're going to keep everybody busy, but we'll figure it out. That's not a great example because seasonal businesses are busy. And
it like energizes you where that stresses the heck out of some people.
Yeah, you've got kind of these challenges and the stress. Like, there's no specific and clear playbook. I like wayfinding. So like the art of wayfinding, oftentimes like a pioneer or trailblazer has to trailblaze something, and they do that through the art of wayfinding. And those that come behind them can now standardize things and systemize things and make it very rigid and formatted. One of the most greatest wayfinders of all time would be Lewis and Clark. Give them the directions, head west until you reach water. right? They don't know what they're going to find. Is there going to be people who are friendly, people who are antagonistic? Is there going to be resources, or they're going to be dangers? They find all those things, they map it along the way, and then behind them, people come and they settle the towns. So those seem to be things that I enjoy quite a bit.
Where do you start being a problem? Is it like you really don't like the documentation, or do you not like the rigid meetings and stuff? Because I also think you've followed a lot of EOS stuff too, right?
And the way this is good. This is like a good therapy session for me. Because that's good, because I'm a pilot, so I do like checklists. I like compliance. I like standards. I think I don't like being bored when I don't have to. So one of the biggest challenges is when I have financial freedom and I don't have to work, and the stuff that I'm leaning into somebody else can do, and it's actually boring for me to do it. So then I'm not interested. If it's something that I feel like only I can do and we can't hire someone to do it and it's exciting, then I'm all game for it. But it's kind of I think our most recent project would be a good example of that. So our Ventures program, we're making investment in other painting companies. I'm the only person that could have got us off the ground and got people to sign up and say, yes, we'd love to be an equity partner with you. What's your track record? Nothing? Sounds great. Let's do it. As far as partnership, obviously we have Paris Painting and the corporate. I feel like I was the right person to do that. Now we're in a stage where we have proof of concept. We have a large number of painting companies that we are already partnered with. We can point to their success and their results. We have a much larger team involved now, and we can definitely hire people to go be that front end flow of recruiting. I could do it. I don't have to do it. I'm not super excited about it. It's not very, that's probably one example I can kind of throw out there. And I think you're picking up what I'm putting out there.
No, totally. And I think it's an interesting thing about finding your gifts and stuff is sometimes it's hard to pin it down to some degree, but you definitely know the vibe when you're yep, I've lost interest in that.
It's kind of honestly, so the Painting Contractors Association would be another example. And I've really enjoyed being involved in that organization. Now I was the immediate past chair. So I've been on the board for the last 8-9 years. I was the board chair before the current chair, whose name is Nick. When I jumped into that, both on the board and as the chair, it was a pretty exciting time for the PCA. And I felt like I really enjoyed that bridge in between chaos time, and now it's a little more stable and consistent. And I still will always be involved in the PCA, but I don't have that same edge of excitement that I did when I was oh man, I gotta do this. I don't know who else could do it. Now I feel pretty confident of handling the baton off, and there are the Nicks, the Maggies, the Chris's, the Brads of the world that could do this. Versus before, it was only Jason could do that. And there's probably a lot to unpack in there, but that's kind of a little bit more.
So you're you get going, and then once because you've kind of got a sense about it, where you're okay, starting to lose interest. What's that process look like for you with handing things off, whether it was at Paris or it's at Aleph, or do you have Aleph in the real estate? Is that one big thing, or is that two separate things?
There's two separate things. Yep. Okay. So we mostly done real estate. What was that?
What's the name of the real estate?
So Aleph Capital makes investments both in real estate. It was also the initial funding arm of Aleph Ventures. But yeah, with all those things, it's kind of I'm also very open to other people just being better than me. And people usually, they find their ways into wanting to do something like that. So I feel a lot of it's been organic. I don't know if I could give a great answer of here's the process, here's what it looks like. I also won't just fake it and say I've always done it in a healthy way. There's probably times when I'm unhealthily retreating back from a company that I helped get off the ground, and now other people are picking it up and driving with it, and I could do that better. But I feel overall I do it pretty well, but we'll find out in the next couple decades if that's true.
I know, dude. Isn't it crazy that I've been really present to that recently with entrepreneurship in general? Is I hope it's working out. I think it's going good.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And we all, the scorecards that tell us, how things are actually going, and yeah, things are going great right now. But it's much less about, when you build an organization, it's you can make that initial handoff, but then is it going to sustain over decades? Part of that is just continue to execute. Part of that is the culture that you set too.
Dude, was Aleph Capital, the real estate investing, in Aleph Ventures, or Aleph Holdings, doing all of that? Was that accidental, or was that well thought out, or how did you go from Paris Painting to those two things?
Yeah, I would give my business partner Chet the credit for that. So I think Chet had a lot of foresight, and that's why I went after him way back in 2017 as Paris Painting. I said, what would it take for you to be CEO of Paris Painting? Because he's just a world-class visionary. I think I'm a pretty good visionary. It's kind of like a lot of things, actually. I think I'm a pretty good visionary. I'm pretty good at production. I'm pretty good at sales. I'm a pretty good integrator, at least a startup integrator. But I've happened to surround myself with people that are just world-class. And Chet is a world-class visionary, just like Micah's world-class at sales, just like Alex is world-class at integration, just like Eric is world-class at finance. Yeah, I would give Chet the credit for casting that vision, a vision that's large enough for the whole team to get around, and then having the foresight of, yes, we have this awesome little painting company now. We're going to have this big problem in a few years called where do we put our cash? And can we create a vehicle that gives us really good returns over the next few decades rather than playing the stock market? Or we've got this really cool team happening at Paris and at the time Haven, but there's something larger we can start to build to inspire more people to get on board called Aleph Ventures. And then how do we continue to grow that? So I would give him the credit for it. I'd love to say like I'm a visionary, I can see into the future, but I'm just very fortunate to have yoked up with people who can do that.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I mean, we're doing similar things in terms of like partnerships with painting companies, but for us, it was like just being total idiots and just kind of like going for it, and it's like slowly figuring our way out through like tons of failure and mistakes and bad decisions and all that. But like we had a lot of ambition for like what we were doing. But which one came first? Was it real estate or was it partnerships or both?
For sure, real estate came first.
Yeah,
I think real estate came first, and then partnerships soon after. But they were all pretty close. I mean, in real estate stuff, that gets moving in the background for a long time before anything comes to fruition. So I remember back in like 2018, 2018, Chet and I were going out to a site like in the Northwest Metro where we've never done developments on. We were trying to develop land up there. So we were making swings back then, and then finally got some swings to connect in southern Minnesota and snowballed from there.
Very cool. Did you play the same role at like all three of these things between Paris, Aleph Holdings, and I might be botching that language, and then the real estate, where you were like kind of startup guy, like figuring it all out at the very beginning, or?
In some ways. So in Paris Painting, it was very much all on my shoulders. I was driving everything, startup guy, manic energy, okay at everything, not terrible enough at bad at one thing, terribly bad at one thing that would put us under. With the apartments, that was much more, Chet was the primary driver, and I was there to give a little juice of energy. So not quite the same. And then with Ventures, I was kind of like the driver in a sense, but also with a team around me. Team was there to fulfill on the operations side of it. I started out as a front end flow guy and then kind of drifted off into the back as we got a team that was able to take that once we had our first 7-8 partners. So,
dude, did you have sorry to interrupt, did you have the team at Aleph before you started bringing on partners and it was like its own company, or were they people who were like from other companies that were doing it part-time as they transitioned, or how did you guys actually build that?
Yeah, so we had, so Paris Painting, so this is part of, I think, Chet's wisdom, and a lot of the corporate staff, even at Paris Painting, were fractional roles. So even, then, let's say, whatever it was, a $7-8 million painting company, it didn't require a full-time VP of sales, or didn't require a full-time CFO. And so we had this additional bandwidth that we're utilizing with our construction company. So as we started to see the off-ramp from the construction company, how do we fill up those people's capacity? Because Paris Painting still wants access to them, and if we can't fulfill their capacity, they probably want to go find a job where they can have full capacity to make full-time comp to fulfill for their families. So we had those fractional roles. There still were moments, even in the early stages, where we made the leap, and you hire that now full-time overhead role of like a full-time, ox, we would call it, or integrator or fractional integrator. But kind of like any startup, part of it is you're stretched thin and you're making everything work. Part of it is you're making investments, then you have to grow into those investments to have it pay off. There's definitely a little bit of both for us at the start.
Very cool. How do you surround yourself with so many world-class people? Is that like because there's something about you, or you're picking of people, or like, because not everybody's surrounded by world-class people. Like what do you think you do that enables that to happen?
Sure. I mean, the honest answer is probably just the RNG of life. It's what happened. It's the odds. If I were to give an answer,
RNG?
Yeah, I know you would like that.
What's the RNG?
Random number generation from gaming. Like, in a game, like when you cast a spell, there's like the RNG of how much damage it's going to do.
Yeah.
It can be a critical hit or not. So I like to throw that out. I feel like the painting industry should just know what that means, but nobody does. I still throw it out on podcasts.
I love it.
So a little bit's just going to be the RNG of life, like who you happen to bump in shoulders with. But I'd also say, if I were to give you like an answer that you can package up and put on the podcast, it's, a lot of people, when you walk into a room of people, you're most attracted to, or most kind of wanting to interact with people who are like you, people you have similarities with. So if you are big into running, you see one who's obviously a runner, you're going to gravitate towards them to talk to them. If you see someone who is into painting and you're a painter, you're going to want to go talk to them. And so people tend to like people like themselves. And so I think to attract world-class people, you want to be a world-class person. So you want to be honest and have high integrity and a lot of authenticity. So you want to be the people that you want to attract. But then beyond that, there's like a second step of people like themselves. So you have to start by liking yourself. So if you don't like yourself, other people who are like you are not going to like you. So if you want other people like you to like you, you have to start by liking yourself.
It makes sense. It's a lot of liking and liking, but it's good.
Yeah, it's a nice one. I thought it was a nice like string of words to put out there, and people can kind of like unpack it.
Exactly.
And we'll see what happens. Yeah, but I just feel like I've gotten super lucky over it. It's just happened so much. Like my wife got super lucky with my wife. All my business partners, like it just keeps happening. Great people. I feel like even the place that I chose to lean in and fulfill the volunteer side of my sphere of my life with the PCA, like just a ton of great people ended up getting surrounded with and getting involved on the board there. So it's certainly been a habit that's happened over and over and over. I try to distill it. The like answer is where I go to.
Yeah, it's good. Dude, what do you, with just all your experience around the PCA and all the acquisitions and partnerships you guys have done, like what are the biggest, what do you think is the biggest thing that holds back a lot of people in this industry?
I mean, in this industry, a big part of it's ego. So I think in the trades, people tend to have a really big ego, which operates out of just like low self-esteem or shame. But that big ego manifests as like, no one can do it as good as I can do it, or I need to be like the strongest voice in the room, or I have to be the domineering person in the room. I think that high ego is just like it's like a big nerf to being a good leader. And so like, we're gonna kind of keep this going. You'd say like one of the biggest things that holds people back in this industry is good leadership. I think what holds them back from good leadership is having a big ego. I think what gives them a big ego is that they have a lot of like low self-esteem and shame that they're walking through with in life that they haven't dealt with.
Yeah. What about the tactical side? I mean, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. And like, man, leadership is just a tough thing. It's not easy to be a strong leader. It's hard to find a lot of the resources to be a great leader. Like there's just a lot of work. I know like I had to go through to be a great leader. And for sure, like I see a lot of the ego in the industry. What are some of the tactical things that you think people really struggle with?
I mean, it's the number one thing is priority management. Bread and butter, block and tackle. Do you know how to manage your priorities? And most people don't. Most people are just reacting to their day-to-day, their week-to-week, their month-to-month, their year-to-year, as opposed to taking the time, be proactive on it, brain dump all your tasks, assign how much time it's going to take, categorize them, now prioritize them, and put them in your schedule. You can have flex time, you have at least 10% flex time within your week. Just like priority management 101, stuff that like we and I both learned about in college in those programs, is like a glaring gap of skill in the trades, especially when people are starting out.
So I asked earlier, I don't know where you go with this, but in terms of like mentorship and learning along the way, like who's really influenced you? Like where have you always gone to learn? Can you speak towards that a little bit?
Yeah, I was curious. I feel like I'm trying to think what answer I gave this on another podcast, because you had said maybe you heard a good one.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I have a great answer for that. I feel like for like me, I always go to the BIBLE. That's the book for me. And that kind of gives me like the wisdom and the insight of like, how do I apply different concepts to whatever I'm going through. I have a phenomenal group of friends that I'm surrounded with that have become my business partners. I feel like in a lot of ways, they're my mentors. I had a mentor for a long time, for about 10 years. I would meet with him every other week. He's in prison right now, so I don't know if I would still call him a mentor. I still talk to him on the phone every single week, but more as a peer to help him get through that time. But yeah, I feel like it's the people I've surrounded myself with that are my friends. And then I feel like I can just connect with God through the Holy Spirit, whether it's reading the Bible, whether it's praying. And that gives me a lot of the insight that I feel like I can apply to my life. So I don't have like a great answer of like, his name's Bob and he runs a car dealership and I meet with him every month. And,
well, I mean, it's actually really interesting, just given like, if you just look at the whole business landscape, there's like, that is such a big thing around like, get mentorship, get coaches, there's like a wave of that happening. And I'm like part of that. Like I seek out mentors and coaches like crazy myself, but I think you've had a lot of success in like, but in both your personal life, your health, your family, your business, and you haven't gone that route.
Well, you make a good point of like, I do believe that everybody performs better with a coach. So like I have a running coach, I have a strength coach, and the FAA mandates that you get a coach when you want to get your pilot's license. So you have to go through a program with them. So I think anywhere that you want to be like exceptional, you should get a coach. I feel like the people that I surrounded myself, especially in the early stages of my business, they were the best coaches that I could have found. And especially in painting, this is back in 2018, 19, 17, 20. I interviewed with a few, or I kind of probed around and interviewed with a few coaching companies in the painting space. And I was like, oh, that's like, I'm like not impressed. I wouldn't call like this an aspirational mentorship. I would call it like, oh, interesting kind of a mentorship. But I am a believer that everybody performs better with a coach, whatever area of life it is. If you want to be great at chess, you should get a coach to teach you about chess. If you want to be great at StarCraft 2, get a coach there, whatever it may be.
Was someone just like, so when you look at just because you know a lot about business, you wouldn't have the success you have if you didn't. I totally get like one aspect of that is like you have like a Chet, and Chet comes with like a lot of really, I don't know Chet. I don't think I've ever heard his name actually. So I'd be curious to meet Chet someday. So he comes with like his vision and a lot of really unique gifts. And Micah, you talk about sales, and you could go down the list of all the people you surrounded yourself with that like come with like all this different business expertise that plays together. Have you been like an avid like book reader? Are you like, where did you learn some of the other like tactical business stuff? Or has it really just been, just kind of following your nose, like meeting great people and bringing the right people in? Or how have you kind of pieced this all together? Because it's a unique, man. Like you've done stuff that most people never accomplish.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, yeah, I've read books. I've listened to like YouTube videos of people who do business. But there's kind of like, there's nothing new under the sun. In some ways, I think less is more, and I think hard work and applying your learning is probably 80% of it. So I think probably the secret is like, I've been willing to work hard and have focus. I think the real secret is hard work and focus, moving in the same direction over a long period of time. Having like a clear grounding of how I want to do business, what direction we want to move in, and then willing to put in the work consistently over time. That has been a big secret of my success. At the same time, not discounting, I've surrounded myself with some awesome people, and their phenomenal skill sets have been put to good use. And I've certainly done all the work and made the right decisions to help synergize with them. But sometimes, just like my wife, sometimes you get lucky in life. You get yoked up with someone who's just awesome, and you get to ride that. And then you're on a podcast, people are awesome, asking like, what's the secret to success? And you tell them, oh, you got to plan your work and work your plan. And they're like, that doesn't sound that exciting. Like, also, you have to get lucky. So I think it's a big combination of that.
Well, I'm leaning into it because I think it's unique. It's a more unique perspective. Like what you don't hear as often is, like the way you've been saying is like, oh, I'm not sure. And also I think there's a lot of wisdom in just like the simplicity of have a plan, have a focus, work hard, and do it for long enough time that you get to the, compounding results of that effort. And, while there's all these like amazing resources now, like they can be resources, and they also can be like massive distractions that take you away from that focus and just that like dogged, that just focusing on that same thing for a long period of time, so.
It's that consistency for sure. Because I'm thinking back to something I want to say too, which is like, I've also surrounded myself with really like not great people. And not that they weren't great people, but it just didn't work out business wise. And so there's been plenty of times where I had tried to take on a partner before these ones that have been successful in Paris painting, and it didn't work out. But none of my bad luck in life has put me under. I've been always willing to fight through it. None of my good luck in life has put me under either. I've always been very clear of what direction I wanted to head in, even as we surpass goals. That's like a big, I think just like personal, like being well-grounded as a person. You want to head in a direction in life. So then when you get like the wind, the waves knock you down, you're like, oh, I don't know if I ever could hit that goal I originally set. Like, okay, it doesn't even matter what the goal is. All that matters is that you're moving in the direction. The whole reason you set the goal was to affirm the direction and give you a focus directionally. Same thing, because then the same thing happens when you surpass it. A lot of times people will surpass a goal. It's like, well, now what? Like, well, you want to move in this direction in life. That goal was just a way to keep you focused. Now you've surpassed it. You can set new goals, but it's not even about the goals. It's about the direction you're heading in. It's kind of that philosophical saying of life it's a journey, not a destination. So just focus, what are you being along the process, not what are you achieving. We're human beings, not human achievers.
It's a really, really useful spin on goals as they're intended to set direction, because there's also that unhealthy relationship so many people have to goals. And you just pointed to it of like, when I fall short, I'm beating myself up and there's problems. And then when I exceed it, I get complacent or I don't know what to do. There's a lot of baggage with goals. So I think that's a nice little wrinkle to say, hey, the intention of a goal is to set my direction. The point is not the goal itself.
It's a great follow-up question. Why is that goal meaningful? What does that goal represent? And it's let's just make up a goal. It's cool. Someone might say I want to buy a big, beautiful house with an amazing glass walls that overlook this beautiful nature preserve in Colorado. I'd be like, that's a great goal. That's a beautiful picture. Why is that meaningful? Well, I feel like I would have a lot of security and my family would have a place to be joyful. And I was thinking, okay, great. Those are really great directional statements. And the thing about a directional statement is they should be able to be pursued and never accomplished. They should be able to be pursued independent of your circumstance. So whether you get a house that's 3 times as big or you end up renting in an apartment, can you still pursue those feelings of directional type statements through your focus?
Can you say a couple of those things again? So you said a directional statement, and I think it's similar to the way I think about intention, right? So directional statement is never fulfilled, but then there's some other pieces that you said in there that I wanted to capture.
It's something that you can pursue independent of circumstance. So maybe I'll get one that's a little bit easier to grasp. Someone might have an intention statement. I think it's an intention statement of, I want to be physically able to do as I'm called. And so a goal that they're going to set is, I want to run a 3-hour marathon. And that goal makes sense given my current circumstances, that I don't have chronic pain injury, I have the time to do this, et cetera, et cetera. I have access to a gym flow. There may be a circumstance 5 years from now where they have chronic knee pain, they actually had to have a leg amputated, and they don't have any free time. It's well, that goal is probably not going to get hit. The question is, can you still pursue that intention now through a new goal? Right? Maybe they got to do the wheel armchair thing that they're riding the bike on. So it's kind of think through whenever you set an intention statement. So first, when you work with people, and I think you do the same exercise with people as well, you kind of think what's an image of success? And then let's find the derivative of that. Why is that a meaningful image to you? Okay, and then we kind of get to an intention statement, a directional type statement. Let's just challenge this a little bit. Can we pursue this intention independent of circumstance? Let's imagine where you've overexceeded that goal of success. Can you still pursue this intention? Let's imagine a scenario where you've been beat so far down that it's now out of reach. Can you still pursue this intention? Because our circumstances we can't control, our base code and our intentions we can control. And it's a combination of those two things that gives us our outcomes. In my humble opinion, those are my 2 cents.
No, I think
you and I actually we speak a lot of the same language and kind of think through the same thoughts and try and talk to people about some of the same thoughts. So I enjoy this conversation.
Yeah, no, I think that that's a lot of the work we've done at our companies, is creating a future for the company that is, it's these directional statements. The whole future we have written is directional statements, using the words used, or ours, these are declarations of the future. They're intentions. There's something I can act on right now. I can, you could throw that as another thing, is I can pursue it independent of circumstance. I can act on it moment to moment. It's, it's a declarative statement. In some ways, like how you said, they're never fulfilled. There's always opportunities to elevate and to continue to act on them. And there's a lot of power in those kinds of intentions and statements. And, for me, I have been working on creating really intentional, a little redundant, intentional intentions, but really putting time into what are my intentions in the domain of life, with family, and Josephine and I have a, hey, this is the future we're creating in our family, and it's all directional statements, it's all intentions. It's the same version of that. And how do I do that in my health? So that's the guiding light for me in my life, is those types of statements in different parts of my life. So anyway, it's cool to hear you speak about all that, and just from a little bit of a different angle. Because anytime you can add more texture to the same good ideas, they get a little bit richer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. There's a few things, if you don't mind, I'll just riff off of that. I just love when you say it can't be accomplished. Because I think another great example of that is, you probably have an intention statement with your wife. It may be something I want her to feel loved or something like that. You never get to say I did that, I'm done. I no longer need to bring her flowers. I no longer need to I accomplished it. So it's kind of just funny to call that out. And then you're right, they should be actionable, because A lot of people like to set goals. I'm a big fan of setting meaningful goals. And a goal is meaningful when it's aligned to your intentions. So everybody sets a goal like, I want a Ferrari, I want to be able to bench 300 pounds, or whatever it may be. It's like, well, is that a meaningful goal to you? Because when rubber hits the road, like if it's not meaningful, you're not going to pursue it. You're not going to push through those challenges. So is it aligned to your intentions? Is it fueled by your passions? And then does it ultimately serve your purpose? If you're doing those things, it's pretty high likelihood you're going to be hitting those meaningful goals, which isn't the ends. The goals are actually just means. It's your intention statements, it's your passion, it's your purpose. That's the actual ends.
They're expressions of the intention. They're mile markers along the way. It's like a game to play. It's because you want to have some game to play. It's like, why, I'm going to run an ultra. Like it's a game to play, but I've got like this intention for my health or for challenging myself or like whatever that is for you, that these are just different ways to express those intentions.
I think those goals are important because they help hone your focus. A good example of this is you might have an intention in your business, and it could be something vague like we want to make profit and our clients are happy and the customers are happy. And you would never say like, I think if we just think about those things and are mindful of it, we will do it. I would never invest in a company that would operate that way. What you end up doing is set like meaningful, realistic goals week by week that turn to actions, that turn to calendar schedules to help fulfill those intentions. So people are like pretty used to doing that in business. It makes a lot of sense because we are forced to compliance through like capitalism. Like if it doesn't make money, we're gonna have an issue, especially if you live in America because we don't have a safety net system. But when it comes to the most important areas of life, like with their spouse or with their relationships or how they volunteer or their mental well-being or their spirituality, a lot of times I feel it, I would speak for myself, there's this desire to just say like, well, I know my intention with my spouse, and I'm sure I'll just do it. And I would never run a business that way, but we think that's, in this sphere of life, it goes. So I think it's important to set these goals because they help maintain our focus. They help keep us on the right track to actually do what we want to do.
How do you manage the balance of like too many goals and not enough goals? Because you can start to become like this like kind of goal machine, if you start doing that across all these different domains. So is there like a sweet spot that you found that
I think
really works?
I think it's an art more than it's a science.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that I kind of look at my life is there's like 3 macro areas and 3 micro areas. You get 1, maybe 2 goals per area. And if some of the things are like big turns, then you might be doing like nothing or just sustaining in other areas of your life. So you kind of have like the person, the family, and then how you impact the world be the 3 macro areas. Within the person, there's spiritual, mental, physical. Within the family, there's your spouse, your children, and your estate. And how you impact the world through vocation, volunteer, and relationships. You might have like a big world changer in like one category.
By the way, Jason, is that kind of like your framework right there, where those are the 3 macro and the 3 micro?
So this is the background of my phone. So these are all my intention statements.
So you said is the person, the impact, and the
so so it kind of goes from like a sphere coming out. So you have Eric, like you have the macro area of Eric, and that should be taken care of well so that you can best serve the Barstow family.
Yep, got it.
And then if you ever want to have a big impact on the world, the Barstow family should be pretty short up, because if it's not, it's going to come out and you're not going to be impacting the world in a great way if you have turmoil and chaos at home.
And then inside of each of those, you said person, got...
So within like the Eric sphere, there'd be your spiritual, your mental, and your physical. Within the Barstow family, there would be your spouse, your children, and your estate. And then how you influence the world, impact the world, would be through relationships, through your vocation, and your volunteer. And each of those micro areas I listed out would have intention statements. Each of the macro areas, the 3 I listed out, would have passion statements. And then there's a purpose statement that all kind of funnels into. So a lot of times the intention statements, you can see them funnel into a passion statement. And then the purpose statement, you should be able to touch into the intention statement of each sphere as well.
There's mission or intention statements, passion statements. What was the other one?
Purpose. Yep. I could do, if you ever want to do these sessions together, I get it keeps me from playing StarCraft 2 too much. I just got into Masters League on the ladder.
Nice.
So I definitely need to play less now because it's becoming a little too much. So if you ever want to do a session, a couple sessions times, I get a lot of
that could be fun. I have a little bit of a different like framework myself. Dude, my game was I played StarCraft when it's the original StarCraft, and then I played the Frozen Throne. Warcraft 3, Frozen Throne, Randy Chaos and Frozen Throne. Those were my games, and then Counter-Strike, Source.
Okay.
Back in the day. Those were my and I was on like maybe 5-year hardcore computer game spree. And then my computer broke one day and like it just crashed on me. And I'm like, that's it.
This is a good time
And
to
I was
stop.
done. And dude, I can't like play video games anymore because I was so good at them back in the day that like I don't like to be a beginner again.
Yeah.
And I know I
with
don't
you.
have what it takes to like the time and the energy to like get good again. So
You know what? Yeah, you know too much.
yeah, exactly, man. All right. So I really love all that. Mine, I think of it similarly, well, not similarly, but it's interesting how much we have these parallels. I've got, hey, here's like 14 domains of life that are fundamental to being a human being. So there's 14, you got 9, a lot of similar. So I'd be curious to map that, kind of map them
Yeah.
together. So I'm going to mess with that a little bit. And then, yeah, same thing. It's like, what is my intention in each one of those? And for me, I look at it like there's really like 3 I'm like super focused on right now because it's just hard to be focused on everything. Even when you look at those, person, family, impact, and then you look at the micros from each of those, it's hard to be focused on 9 things at once.
Correct.
Because you could say there's 9 things there.
Yeah, when I started doing this when I was 22 years old.
Yeah.
I got a hold of this. It was a poster used for church plants, and I readopted it to like a person. And I remember I just deleted out the volunteer and relationships part. That was just, I had to be so focused on everything above that. I eventually brought those back, but they're different for life.
For the last couple of years, I've been like I've got a lot of domains in life, but like the most important 3 for me right now is like what I'm building my career, my health, and my family. And there's other things like, I got to keep them worrying, but like those are the big focuses for me in like this phase of life. For a long time, I would try to make way too. I was setting like, all right, I'm going to make all these changes in my health and all these changes here and all these changes here in the next 5 weeks, and then I get done in 5 weeks. I'm like, I got nothing done, and started to learn.
You can sprint towards those crazy goals, but have you really become a person who hits those kind of goals? And that's like at the end of the day, the goals are just about becoming a person. Like you want to become the intent. You want to be living out the intention statement. So it's nice to set sustainable goals so you can just be that way.
Yeah.
I suppose like I found with either myself or working with people, like if you set like a crazy goal, some people can sprint towards it, hit it, and then they just like revert back to being the same old person they were.
Yeah. How much of all this that we're talking about right now ties into the, the life coaching that I think if I remember right, you said kind of did this like casually, like just helping people out with like some life coaching. And then you started to do it a little bit more, but you're like, I'm not going to do it casually. You're charging people to do that. Like, and I imagine that's like something you do because you really love and enjoy doing it. What's like your approach to all that? Or can you just say a little bit about?
Yeah, it's that exact same thing. So it just happened informally for a long time. People would reach out to me and ask me to mentor them. I'd be like, I don't know what that means, but like, here's how I can help you. I would put them through this framework. And I did that for years, but not everyone would complete it. Actually, a lot of people would just like trail off and they wouldn't complete all the sessions. So then in Q4 last year, I started charging people for it. And suddenly everyone shows up to every single session.
Imagine that. They don't pay attention.
Yep, the magic of having skin in the game.
Yeah.
But something I enjoy doing. Obviously, it's not something I have to do. It makes little to no impact on my personal financial reality.
Yeah.
But it is something that gives me a lot of joy. It keeps me from playing video games 5 hours a day, and it's something I genuinely look forward to. I think it's a unique use of my giftings. I'd say I'm very, very good at workshopping with entrepreneurs, especially on going through these thoughts. Because most entrepreneurs have ADHD. You can send them prep; they're not going to do it. You're going to have to walk through it with them. I'm pretty uniquely, I have kind of a unique ability to quickly jump up to a high philosophical discussion, but then jump back down to really tactical and practical. And something that like I feel like I'm using my unique abilities when I do that.
What do you notice that people kind of struggle with in writing these statements and intentions, and like when you say you kind of got to workshop it, like where do you see people get it hung up or struggle? Like what do people need support with in building and designing that stuff?
Yeah, I think a lot of people know a lot of things. They just don't take the time to like write it down or think through it to the second level. So I usually start with a very open-ended question, like, have you ever thought about your purpose? And then we'll see where that goes. And sometimes I can start, just jotting things down based off, their freestyle conversation. But what usually ends up happening is I go through that kind of method we talked on previously, which is like, give me an image of success in this sphere of your life. What's an idealized outcome? And we start peeling back the onion a little bit, like, okay, like, why is that meaningful? Like, what about that, do you find to be successful? And then I kind of reverbalize, okay, like, here's what I'm hearing you say. Does any of this resonate with you? Right? I'm hearing you say blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. And then eventually we get to a first draft or first cut of an intention statement. And I always have them rewrite it in their words, because these intention statements, they're kind of like tattoos. They just need to be meaningful to them. Kind of like if you have a tattoo, like it's meaningful to you, someone else might see it and they might have some ideas about it, or they might ask you what it means, then you get to tell them like the full breadth of what that tattoo means. And also people have different styles. Some people will just like write one word, some people will write a couple sentences, some people write a big paragraph for their intention, some people just use a picture, kind of like people have different style tattoos. But a lot of it is just talking through someone what I'm hearing them say, and then putting it into those type of intention statements you and I talked about, where it's continual, it's never achieved, but also separating that out from a more macro passion statement, and then working with them and saying, based off what we're seeing here, is anything that's jumping out to you when it comes to a purpose statement? And we usually don't always get to a purpose statement. Sometimes that takes years for someone to really develop, but I think a lot of it is sometimes people have like this gut feeling of they know what they should be doing, but they haven't put it into words. So they don't have this sense of security and peace of I know what I'm doing and I feel good about it.
We just had our Penny Business Pro leadership last week, and like that's like one of the first really fundamental cuts at the whole thing is like, what's your intention? We come at it from some different ways, but like that's where it starts. And one of the things, like one of the mantras, like keep drilling in, is if you can't say it, you can't have it. And it's like there's so much power in being able to articulate that, but it's not always easy, especially with these kinds of things. That like it's a feeling like you can kind of, but the work to actually put language to it is not always easy. But once you have language to it, it's so powerful.
Yeah. It's kind of like I mean, you just put it in perfect words. I'm not going to try and add to it.
Yeah. So how long does it, so you're working on like these like three areas the three macros, the three micros, like going through that, is that like a multi-call series of things where you're like working with people on that?
Yeah, everybody's different in how they process through it, and the way it kind of structured is I do 4 1-hour sessions with people, and I generally frame it out of we're going to do on the foundation work first. So we're going to go through all these intention statements, try and bubble them up into purpose statements, and maybe get passion statements, and maybe get a purpose statement. Then we go to the circumstances or the planning. So this is kind of like everything that's going on in life. What are your past achievements? What are your current drivers and restrainers that are circumstantial and temporary? So I don't want to hear like your passion statement restated and why that's a driver. Tell me about like how you live close to a gym and that's a driver for you, as opposed to if I live far away, that'd be a restrainer. Then we come up with ideas, and then from that, the last session is setting meaningful goals, right? And most business owners know how to set smart goals, but then just kind of challenge them and probe in and say, why is that a meaningful goal? How are you going to accomplish it? What's the biggest risk that's getting not done? And on the front end, how do we de-risk that? So I schedule 4 sessions to go over 3 areas, and different people get through different amounts. I've had some people, we do 3 sessions just on the foundation. I have some people who just blow through the foundation, but then they never do any prep work when we get to the middle area. So I'm just walking through every single section with them. Every person is a little bit different, but that's generally how I frame it.
It's cool. It's cool to hear you talk about like there's obviously a lot of depth to like the framework and the way you can tell you've gone through this like a lot of times yourself and with people, just with the level of questions, and to know like, okay, that points to this and this points, like all your different ways in, to help people articulate this stuff.
It's definitely, it's a wayfinding exercise with most people. And a lot of times it's like, I've had some sessions where it's just like, I just ask if you ever thought about your purpose, and I don't say anything for the next hour, for the next 50 minutes. But I'm like typing a bunch of stuff in a bunch of different places, because they're just like pouring out like a stream of consciousness that is productive.
Yeah. Just for anybody who's listening, it's, this here, like that's the first part of our ultimate intent of Penny Business Pros, like people create freedom, but it's also like the freedom to create. And it's like the freedom to create your life. Like it all like in my view, and it sounds like yours too, is like the beginning of everything is like creating these intentions. Like that's not the beginning of everything, but the beginning of like creating and designing your life. Like that's, you could talk to people about a lot of different things, but the place you go is like, all right, well, let's get like these fundamental areas of your life with like really clear intentions and purpose, and so anyways, for anybody listening, like, that's why I'm just leaning into it, is I think it's super interesting. And I think it's really like a sourceful place to look, for like, how are you going to live your life? And that's a place that, as you you kind of alluded to too, a lot of people don't spend a lot of time thinking about that. And, it's like, that's a thing we're thinking about.
It is, and it's just like I wish I didn't have to. That's how I would just say. It's kind of like anyone who grew up doing priority management exercises every Sunday night in college. It's like, man, if I didn't have to spend 2 hours making sure every other hour of my week was productive, I'd get 2 more hours of stuff done. I would just say in my life, with my intent, if I don't review those every single night, if I don't like track my progress every single week, if I don't set new goals every single quarter, if I don't review the whole thing, tear it down and build it back up from scratch every single year, I have found myself, and I believe that I could be wildly unproductive for decades and just kind of tread water. I believe I have the full capacity to do that. And it takes like all hands on deck, a ton of effort just to like keep me moving in the right direction. I wish I didn't have to. It's just like, it's part of me being a human.
Yeah. Well, my experience has been like, man, it's a powerful way. It's also like a powerful way to live your life. And from what I've seen with so many people I've worked with is like people articulating their intentions and connecting their intentions to like their heart and what matters to them, like things start to shift, and it's positive.
They can live with alignment too, like just living an aligned life where just they have that peace of mind. Like, I know what I'm doing. I know why I'm doing it. I know how this serves my purpose. I know what serves my passions. I know it's aligned to my intentions. That like sense of security is like a lot of anxiety and anxiousness. I think a lot of people just carry and run around with, not having that sense of security.
Yeah, and not really knowing why or what's at the source of that, but there is something powerful when you get that clear for yourself that like this is what I'm doing, and I'm super grounded with that thing that I'm doing. So last thing I just was curious about, because I'm homeschooling. I've got my family and we're starting to homeschool. How do you guys? And I believe you do some cool rhythms and things like that with your family and your kids. So, if you were to just to share like some of the things that you're proud of that you do, that you really love that you do with family life, like what are some of those rhythms that really work for you as a homeschool family?
Well, I just start out with family. I give my wife a lot of credit. I lucked out big time, and she kind of sets the tone and the attitude for the family and the home life, and life could be a lot harder. I know that for sure. Give her a ton of credit. I'm a big fan of propaganda. I think it works. I try and propagandize myself a ton. That's why I have all my intentions on my home screen and review that every night. And there's just a couple things like every single morning. I did this morning. My kids come down. I always say like, "Oh, Peggy, I'm so happy to see you. Like, I'm so glad to see you. Like, this is great." So like, it's a great day to have a great day. Like, I'm so happy to see you. Just make sure they hear that every single morning. Yeah. And then when they go to bed, there's like, I ask them. I always say like, Ivan, do you mind if I ask you some questions? Sometimes they know what's coming. Sometimes they forget. I'll be like, Ivan, can I ask you questions? Yes. Did you know that I love you so much? Did you know that you make me so happy? Did you know that I'm so happy you're my son or daughter? And it's just like, it's the same thing over and over and over and over. But as they grow up inside my house, they're going to hear that thousands of times. I'm just like a big fan of like, I think advertising, I think propaganda is effective societally and individually. And so that's one thing I think I'm kind of proud of. It's just like continual propaganda to my kids.
I love it.
Outside of that, we do the classic chore chart. And the thing that I think is the best part about the chore chart is it's something that my kids have designed. And so they have buy-in. So I think what a common thing is like, here's the chore chart. You're going to do your chores, and I'm going to give you either a carrot or a stick. Supposed to what we did, what I think was well, we said like, hey, would you guys want to do a chore chart? I heard you guys wanted this thing. It's a way we could earn that. But I want you to like draw what the chart's going to look like and then come up with the chores. And then like they come up and then like we're kind of giving feedback as parents, but they own it. I think there's just a difference between them owning it and it being placed on them. The family meetings is something I'm like fairly well known for on the internet land. So we just had our 276th weekly family meeting, and this is something that I just felt prompted to start. I do a 3-day silent retreat every year. I did this.
Do you do that yourself? Like just you go do the 3-day silent retreat?
Myself. I did the first 10 years I did with a retreat center, a Jesuit retreat center, where they hosted it. And then once COVID hit, I started doing it on my own because they had a bunch of restrictions and it was limited number of people that could go. But I just felt convicted that year I felt like I was a good dad, good parent, all those things. But I felt convicted to start these weekly family meetings. We do that. We have a rhythm that we do every single time. It starts with declaring the intention of the family meeting. So why do we do it? When it's time to start the family meeting, we do this to have open and frequent communication, help all members of the family realize their potential. Then we go through what the highs were, right? So just like the kids to remember, what was your favorite part of last week? Like, let's just take a time to reflect back everybody's favorite part of the last week. You go one by one. Also, while you're doing this, you're teaching your kids how to behave in a meeting and how to stay focused and listen to people. And then go through the lows. Then we go through the projections for the next week. Anything that you need help with, there's our lows. What do we got going on next week, Mom? Mom goes through the family calendar. We talk something about the house. So it might be an idea, it might be an issue. We talk something about finances. So it might be a monthly update, how we do on the budget versus the actuals. Here's an investment idea, we're doing this. Or, hey, we save money by doing this or that. Just something financial so the kids can grow up hearing their parents talking about finances. Then we get into member development. So everybody has to report each week how they developed as a person. It could be physically, I exercised. It could be like I learned something in music class.
I just gotta say, Jason, I love your choice of words on propaganda, member development.
Awesome. Yep, you got it, 10 out of 10. And then we go to compliments. So everybody gets to solicit 2 compliments. You can pass if you're in like a fight with somebody. But each member of the family gets to solicit 2 compliments. Then we end with a word of scripture. So it's usually me reading through the Proverbs. And then we'll do a silly family picture and then a treat at the end. And the treat at the end is kind of like a little bit of a design thing. It keeps everybody engaged. They don't have to participate in the meeting, but if they don't participate in the meeting, they don't get to have the treat at the end. It also helps when it's Friday. I come home, maybe I've had a long week, and the last thing I want to do is run a family meeting. And the kids are like, oh my goodness, is it family meeting night? Is it family meeting night? Because they want that treat at the end of it. So especially when they're young, it helps to get them bought in and engaged. So yeah, that's one of the things that I'm proud of.
What do you guys, how's homeschooling been for you?
My wife has been an all-star, a rock star. We do like a gather round homeschool style. So where the kids all are generally learning about the same topic, but at different skill levels. So they'll break out individually to do reading and math lessons, and we come together and learn around a specific topic. I love it. I think we're in a fortunate, position of life where we can lean in and do that. The kids are still Mondays, they meet with another family that homeschools. Tuesdays, they have music class. Wednesdays, Awana. Thursdays, co-op. Fridays, ninja class course. So they're doing other stuff outside the house with other kids each day, but it's a great way to instill our family values. We're not outsourcing the learning. I don't know if we'll do it forever. I hope that we will until they are ready to go to college, especially with all the resources that are available now for either third-party learning engagements or just self-learning. But it was definitely my wife's passion when we got married, something she really wanted to do. And I'm very grateful for that because I've enjoyed it too.
Yeah. Did you guys feel like you went through a period of just figuring it out?
For sure. Yeah. And especially we weren't quite sure what the curriculum was even going to be.
Right.
And we landed on a good program that we like now, we've been running with for a while. But there's definitely how bad could you screw it up mentality too when we're starting. I was we've got some good private schools near us too, but the public school system, the standard just is what it is. And we're I think we can do better than that. And especially when they're so young, it's go play in the dirt. You'll probably learn a lot about yourself. You might learn more than me trying to teach you whatever it is I'm going to teach you when you don't know how to read. So,
well, that's basically what it is for if you just look up hey, kindergarten and younger, it's what's the homeschool curriculum? It's go play.
Yeah. And we have 5 kids. They get to play with each other quite a bit. We live in a cul-de-sac with a couple of homeschool families, so they get to go jump around the homeschool and play with each other. I think that's where a lot of learning happens. I mean, I don't know if you'd say the same thing, but I learned way more at my little student painter program than I did going in my education, from university degree in college. And I think real life teaches a lot more than you learn in a classroom sometimes too.
Yeah. That's what we're they're not quite at that age yet, but that's starting to be all right, now how do we weave all the social life in? Because they're super tight. Bella and Brady are really tight. And they spend the day together, but and that I love and it's great. But yeah, how do we weave in? Because they went to a Montessori school for a little while. And Bella was old enough where she misses her friends and all that stuff. So it's how do we, that's one of the things where we're kind of figuring out right now is, creating that kind of social life that's not as easily there as if they're going to school.
Yep, totally get it.
Well, I know we got to wrap up here in a couple minutes. Awesome conversation, man. Thanks so much for doing this. I think there's a lot we could continue to talk about and like dig deep into. But this is, for anyone listening, this is like basically Jason and I's like first conversation. We talked like 5 minutes at the PCA. So yeah, super cool, man. Anything else that you'd want to share? Anything you wanted to elaborate more on that we've touched on?
No, we went pretty deep and had some pretty fun combos, and I don't think there's anything that we need to spin off of too much. It's a good job leading the conversation and getting to some. I do a lot of podcasts, and people ask me like, "What's the biggest mindset shift you have to do from 1 to 10 million?" I'm like, I don't know, just like 10x. Like, I feel like we had more fun conversations. I usually get people ask me like, "What's the first role you need to hire in a painting company?" I'm like, so like this was just a fun conversation to have. Not those other things aren't useful; they don't have their place. But,
hey man, that's what I was aiming for. I know we have a lot, and I'm sure there's other things like we didn't even get into that we could. But I just, I've always felt, even though we haven't connected, like I've always felt like Jason's like, someone I for sure want to connect with, and so glad that we finally have. And we'll see, where else we go from here. But if anyone isn't aware, so Jason's running a great company in Minnesota. He's doing something similar with us. So if you're looking for like business partners and all that stuff, you can reach out to those guys. You can talk to us. But anyways, man, excited to see and curious to see like what you do next, because I can't imagine you'll hang out for too long.
Play StarCraft 2 too much longer.
Yeah. At some point you're just going to win. You're just going to conquer that and need to do something else. So
the game's like 15 years old. I should probably hang it up. Yeah.
It's awesome. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you. Great conversation. Let's talk again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Mac.
Peace. Hey guys, thanks for listening to the show. I hope you found it valuable. We make these episodes in the show for you, truly. So your feedback is super valuable to us, whether it's, things you liked, things you didn't like, what you want to see more of, what you want to see less of. Any feedback you can give us is going to be super helpful as we continue to evolve and improve the show over time. And if you want a copy of the Fast Growth Roadmap for Painting Contractors, which really simplifies the steps you take to building a business, we've got that resource for free for you. Just check the description or the bio where you're watching or listening to this episode, and you can just click and download that for free, and it should help give you a good roadmap for how to build and scale your business like the people that you're listening to on the show. So thanks for listening in. We'll see you soon.